Okay, let's see how we can work with the variables. Like what are different types of variables we have available in TIBCO. One is a job shared variable, other one is a shared variable, and there are certain variables, each and everything we can call it as a process variables. All these things are we can call it as a process variables. Each and every activity when you create that particular output will be stored it. It means it's a one of process variable will be creating. These all you can call as a process variable. How you are saying a variable, you can see a dollar symbol. Always the variables will be defined with the dollar symbol. So these are the three different, and apart from this, even we can create a variables also. In somewhere we might have shown it here. Apart from this, even we can create a variables also here. These are the local variables we can say. Okay, I think we not created anymore. I showed somewhere. Okay. You just click on anywhere and then click on plus add child here. You can just click on add child here. I'm just doing once again. Click on anywhere plus add child, and then here you can go for the variable here. These variables are basically an XSL variables. Once you define a variable, this variable will be only available for this particular map data. Like if you see, these are the variables. These variables are available for everywhere. Even if you adding any end or anything, it will be added. Then once you define a variable here, right? Let's define one variable here. Anywhere, you just go for here. Just configure it one. Even if you want, you can move it to here also. So you can see that if you want to map anything here, you can map it here. From here you can map it here. There will be no issue. You will be able to map it. But once you go here, you will see that where here. But when I am here, I am able to see where. Means it's the variable that we define on the particular activity input tab. Those are called the local variables, and it is only accessible at that particular activity. And other thing is the your process user defined process variable. We already seen how to work with user defined process variables with the. This is the place where exactly we will define user defined process variable, and we have seen how we can use the user defined process variable and how to assign a value to the process variable using an assign activity. So these are the variables. First, let's see. But for handling job shared variable and shared variable, basically we'll use the same activities called getter and setter here. You can just see the set shared variable, and you'll see the one more thing called get shared variable. These are the two activities for using setting and getting both the shared and job shared variable. Okay, what exactly the difference between shared and job shared variable? As a name shared here, this particular once you set a variable data here, you can able to assign uh, a value, and then you can share this particular information across all your processes or process instances in a different engine also. It means it's kind of a constant value, so you will work it, and then whenever you want you can update on the runtime. Whenever you want you can update on the runtime using the set, and then you can do the get. So but wherever the job shared variable here is, as a name implies job, it means this is also one kind of a shared variable, but this particular value will be accessible only for the specific to job. Okay, if you see that one here. So initially I told you how you can set a value. Once you define a variable, okay, I just drag and drop the shared variable here. I just define one option called one element called counter with an integer of type. I just want to do 1 2 3 first, kind of a sequential thing I need to do. So I just put it here, and if you are by default, whenever you define a variable, whenever you're using it, first thing is you have to use a set variable. Otherwise, when you run the process, a runtime error you will get that variable is not set. Means that once you define a variable, you have to set a value, and then you can use the value. So for setting the value, what you need to do? You need to use a set variable, and then once you set a variable, you can retrieve the value here. That's the reason we are using get directly get. But where do we setting? we have disconnect the set variable, but if we are directly using the get variable, if you just see it here, you can just see what I mean. We are getting variable is not set, but wherever, because we are trying to retrieve a value for that variable, actually value is not set anything. So if you just do like this, you can see it's went smooth. But when you're running a shared variable, when you're running a process with the job shared variable, you can see that what is the initial value here. Initial value we set value, and then what is the value here? It's the same value we are getting it here. And then what we are doing here is we are just adding a plus one. Means the counter operation would be 2. As I told you, the job shared variable data is specific to the job. And when you click on one more time, then you can see the behavior. And you can see that in this process, we already set a value called 2. But will this the same value will be stored and it will be accessible over here also? No, because whatever you are doing is setting and getting, that will be specific to that particular job. But here when you are setting it here is, you are setting the value. If there is no default value, again it will be taking the using set variable value. If any default value, for that default value, it will be retrieved for each and every job. And within the job, if you are doing any setting and getting, that value will be retrieved entire the job. After the job gets completed, you cannot able to retrieve that value. So this is a behavior. Okay. Whereas when you create a shared variable here, when you create, just copy. Okay. Instead of you define instead of you using a shared variable for initial value, even we can initialize a value also here. Select a value or build a value. Okay, select a value means if you have any XML file somewhere, you can configure. If you have a build value, you can just go for here. What is the one we configured here? Counter, build a value, go for source, just put 1 as the initial value. Replace, this is the element. Okay, now when you run this process this time, what was the initial value? Okay, I think we are actually setting it. Okay, this time since we already set an initial value, we just disconnect this one. Okay, now run this process. Clear all, and start. What was the initial value we said? 1. Then it is
1.
incremented to 2. And then when you rerun the process again, it always take the default value only. And then it will be running. And even if you run any n number of times, you will get only default value. You cannot do any counter. But when within the process, if you are setting anywhere here again, setting with adding +1, then keep on adding it. And within this job, you can able to set and retrieve the latest values. But outside of the job, you can see that when each and every time you are running the process, there is one job is getting created. The job ID is unique to you. The same job ID will be accessible from here, the process context, process ID or job ID. Okay, now let's see the behavior of the shared variable here.
Shared variable.
You can just select the shared variable here. Okay, now we are setting a value here. Okay. I think we have not defined any structure here, but we will define the same structure here. Whatever we are doing here, change this to integer type, and then go back here. We are getting a structure. Okay, you can see we have set a value, and then we are incrementing here. So same value retrieve here, and then we are incrementing here. Now run this process and see the same behavior. Run both the process. First we already seen initial behavior. Let's see this one. Okay, initially we have set a value 1. We have set another value 1, and we are setting the value 2. Okay, again we are setting it back here. So what we can do, uh, yeah, each and every time the value will be shared across multiple instances. Okay, what we can do is, we can just terminate this one. We will see the behavior. So when you are terminating this means we have to put some initial value. Where do we specify the initial value? Go here. Let's put initial value. Shared variable. Then go back. We already disconnected here, and now run both the process. Now you will get to know the default. Okay, now we will run both the process. We have disconnected. And the shared variable, and you can see what is the default value here is 1, because that the default value is set in the variable level, and after that we have incremented to 2. When you click on run, now what will be your default value now? 2. And again you check it. When you run the process again, what will be your initial value? Get value will be 3. Means that it is storing a value and keep on incrementing it. Whereas in this job shared variable, when you run the process, initially it is incrementing. When I run the second job again, I'm getting the same value, the initial value. But whereas I'm getting the here, I'm getting the value 2. The next when I run the process, I'm getting a value called 3. Whereas if I run n number of times, each and every time the initial value would be, get value will be same, 1, 1 only. This is the initial value we specified in the variable level, only 1. Whereas in the shared variable, you can see the initial value will be always to the latest value. So it keep on incrementing whatever you done last setting. This is the main difference between the shared variable and job shared variable. And there is one more thing what we will do. Shared variable basically store how this value will be incrementing here is, let's go back to shared variable. 1 second. But as of now, with this behavior, you can see that what was the last value here is 3 shared variable. As I told, this value will be stored and shared across all the instances. But when I stop the engine and then run my process, again it will be starting from the default value, not from the latest value. It means that I need to persist somewhere. Shared variable data can be persisted. So that's what I'm going to do here. As of now, it is not persisting anything. Okay. Now click on persist, and then go back and run your process now. What was the final value now? Final value is 5. Okay. Let's stop and then start the same process. This time you should not get the default value 1, you should get the latest value as a 5 because we already persisted it here. But where do you can see that value got persisted or not? You can just go back here under user directory, login, select the user that you have used for login, then go for .TIBCO folder and then go for working folder, and you can see in your folder you can see the project name of the folder, and then go for internal here, and when you open this with notepad you will be able to see the value. What was the latest value? It was 6, and each and every time when you run the process the value will be updated. See that, so the value is updated last minute. So when you stop the engine and rerun the process, since the value is not being refreshed, and the so same file will be available. This time it will be back available from the reset value. Next, this is the exactly how you can. It is not only this only static values you can specify. You can specify entire complete XML schema. You can specify for the shared variable structure. Whatever the data you wanted to store in that, you can store it each and everything. And one thing what we need to do here is, there might be a possibility, since the job shared variable there is no concepts of concurrent access. Concurrent access means these are the variables, right? The variables can be referenced to any of the process. N number of, if a project have a 10 process, 10 process may have used these variables, and each and every process may trigger it on one way. Like one of the process might be triggered on scheduler, one of the process might be triggered with web services. Like it means whenever, if there is a possibility, if both at any point of time more than one process is trying to access either set or getting, then what happens? It will be result will be unpredictable result will be coming, because you are trying to, there is a, or let's say the two process, one process was running set and another process was running get. If the set was completed initial just before and then immediately after the get process is completed, it can take the whatever the latest value set that will be retrieved here. But instead if you just get process completed initially and then set process was completed later, means that whatever the initial latest value set, that value will not be retrieved by the get, because the set process was executed later the get process. So because of that, what happens? You means at any point of time, more than one resource is accessing the shared variables content, will be get the unpredictable result. So to overcome that one, we have one group called, critical section group. It's always a milliseconds. 1 millisecond in the sense 1000 millisecond, 1 second. 1 second I am just keeping some other time. When I run the zip process, sorry, we should not put in the job share variable. Yes, too slow. Let me close this to the open. Go for shared variable and add the general activities. See the sleeping here. Please configure the group action would be critical section. Run the shared variable. You can see that it is waiting in the critical section. All when you are running a critical section, what happens? All your jobs will be holding. You can see that it is not entered the group. You can see that all these things, the group is not entered. They are in the group only, but whereas it is in sleep. Means that when you are using a critical section, why we use the critical section is critical section will be used for running the for restricting the concurrent access for the specific resource. Like what all the resource you can, whatever the resource we have configured inside this group, even if multiple processes are running at any point of time, only one particular active critical section will be accessed. If you see here, since when I run this process, initially there is no other process was there, so it is only one process was accessing. It will be entered here, and then it is in the loop, and then it is in the sleep. And as soon as the critical section group ends, it will be the second job will be processing, and the rest of the third and fourth will be keep on hold only. Means as soon as the second gets completed, it will be holding third. Means that at any point of time, in the critical section, at any point of time, only one resource will be or one process will be accessing your critical section group. This way, if your two process was using Second gate, what happens when you are setting it? Always the process will be, in this case, when two processes are simultaneously accessing whatever the process initially started, after the process gets completed, and then the second process will be running, and then if any uh, critical section groups are configured, it will be executed, so that you can control the simultaneous access, and you can expect the uh, result properly. If you don't use the critical section, what happens? Both will be setting here. If you don't use the critical section, what happens? If you both will be running, because both all the processes are running simultaneously. If the get executes, the first process got executed set, then it will be setting a value. While the set process completed, the second process was executing the get, and then it will be retrieving it. Before executing set only, the get value gets executed. Get will give you the previous value, not the latest value. That kind of a improper results will be there. But using a using a critical section group, we can able to control the uh, uh, concurrent access or simultaneous access. And this one, while using it, if you wanted to restrict the concurrent access only, same process definition or multiple instances of the process definition, then you can use a single group. But instead, if you wanted to restrict the concurrent access across multiple processes, multiple process names, and if each and every process name in the runtime can have the multiple jobs. If you wanted to do a concurrent access across multiple process instances, then you need to select the multi-groups. If you are restricting the concurrent access if you are restricting concurrent access of multiple instances of the same process definition, then you can use a single group. If you are trying to restricting the concurrent access of the multiple job instances of the multiple process definitions, then you can use the multi groups. Then you can configure the lock object. You can use the critical section. You can drag and drop one lock here. For general activities, you can see the lock here. You can see the lock will be configured. But when you are using a critical section, what is the recommended thing? Like I have to adjust for demonstration purpose, I just use the sleep. And when if you are keeping the sleeping activities are request response activities, because it will be taking more time. So because of that, all your jobs will be on hold. It will be very impacted your execution. So always recommended is, as much as possible, if you have feasibility, you try to avoid the time consuming activities like wait for file change or wait for HTTP request or any waiting activity, wait for JMS message, wait for JMS queue, and then sleeping activities of like any request and response activities, HTTP request reply, and then SOAP request reply, and these activities you can ignore it. You can avoid it, will be more process execution will be better. Because if you are using the HTTP request reply and using HTTP request reply, what you can send a request for the HTTP process starter, and it will be waiting for the response. If the process was taking a long time, your complete process, all the processes that are using these shared variables, it will be completely on hold. So that's the reason we should not. What the recommended thing is, we should not use that. And when you are using the critical section with nested critical section, you have to specify the proper locking. If you don't specify proper locking, what happens? It will be going for deadlock. I think this is only about the critical section. And then I wanted to create all these artifacts. I wanted to create all these artifacts as a shared library. Go for the general, go for the library builder. When you see library builder is there are the two ways of sharing the processes across multiple reusability. Like I have some of the process, I wanted to use the same way, whatever the variables concepts, variable process definitions are there. I wanted to use the same variables in another my project. How can you use the one resource in another project? You can from backend you can copy paste. That's not the right way. Only thing is you can create a library builder here, drag and drop the library builder, go for resources and specify what and all you wanted to share it. You can just share these things. So it automatically, if any differences are there, all these things will be pulled out automatically under the dependencies. And once you're done, you just create the build library. You can see that build library was created by default here. Project library dot project library dot. Okay, but how can I use this project library in another project? Okay, for the time being, what we can do, you can just delete this one. Maybe I have used it already. Let me just delete this set. Maybe let me just delete only this particular one. Okay. And then how can I reuse that project library? I'm just showing the same process. Even you can use any one of the process. Since already this whatever the content was there, all the content was created in this project library. So just go back to your project root directory, and select the design time library here. Select the design time library here and click on add. When you clicking on add, what happens? There will be an alias will be gets created. You can check this aliases over here. Edit preferences, file aliases. Is there any aliases? No. You can just see that. When you are adding a project library over here, clicking on plus and what's directory user home. Then you can specify the same path over here. So when you are creating, you can see that you have to, once you add the project library, you must have to save it. You can see that once you have loaded this one, once you have loaded this project library, what happens? Whatever the activities actually that come from project library, we will be gray. Means you cannot able to modify this. Only we can use this process for running. We cannot modify the logic. You can say, and if the whatever the resources that already coming from the project library, and if already the same resource are available in the local project, then you can see this red color icon. It means it's overriding. So in that case, if it is available in local and it is available in project, so which one will take priority? So always the priority will take the local project. If any resources are available in the local project, then local project resources will be taken the priority. Then the coming and then the resources which are coming from the project library. So you can see that it's already the same variable where you can override, but you can see there is no red symbol here. That because this same resource was not available in the local resource and it was imported. And you can see that you cannot modify anything here. You can see all the configuration was edited. You cannot add any plus here. If you are trying to type anything, even if you are trying to delete, nothing you can do here. So this is what exactly project library, how to use a project library and how to create a project library, and once you create a project library, how we can use this project libraries across another project. This is the one of the quick, best way to share your sharing the code across multiple projects, and this will be more reusable. This is the way how we can reuse your codes. Let's say maybe you have one of the application was using the some process. Let's say that you are trying to retrieve the customer details. Retrieving the customer details. This is a process you created as a shared library. And maybe when you are when you are listing out there might be another application where they wanted to list out all the customers available in the system. Then they can use the same process again. They can use it and they can pass all the customer IDs. And maybe if they wanted to check while sending while updating any customer details, first they want to list it out. In that case you can use the same process. You don't need to create. The thing is you can use a project library. That's all it will be done. All your process will be available. And other thing is, I think I might already showed how we can override the project when you're running this like if you have created any global variables and that global variables and if you have created any global variable, let's say one of these process was using global variable, and when you are importing this particular resource into a project library, even while again importing here, while you are while exporting this particular process to project library, and then while importing into the another project, since the way how the process is not editable, similarly the global variables also will not be editable. Then in that case, what you need to do is there is a simple thing is you can just save as this project. When you click on save as project, all the project library, whatever the project libraries was set, it will be coming as inline to here. The way how we are coming, it's a normal project. Project library will be removed when you are doing a save as a project. Save as a project library will be removed. And other thing is, that is not the recommended way. Why it's not recommended way? Let's say you wanted to do some testing. You are doing some you have a service engine, the way how the structure will be organized in some of the companies. You have a service engine, the service engine might be empty. So each and every time when you keep on adding one operation, each operation can be a project library. Okay, but if you want to test this particular operation, you have to plug this project library into the service engine. So when you are doing a testing, you are just sorry, you done a development and you're just doing a testing. And during the testing phase, you identified some process was bug. You need to fix it. In that case, what happens? Again, you have to go back to your process. And then do your change and then come back and build the project library and then re-plug in into the service engine. That's one thing. But there might be a problem with only GB. In that case, okay, I have not moving anything screen. Screen was same. I'm just giving a use case. So in real time, we have a service engine, and each and everything. A service engine can have multiple processes. Service engine can have the multiple processes. Each process like we have a one service engine called the service, and the service engine is one of the project TIBCO BW project. It might be the empty project, and for that project, you may be using the multiple operations. Each operation would be a project library. You are creating a separate TIBCO project with each operation. Each operation you will be building one project library. That project library you are plugging into the service engine project library. How we are doing, how we can create a project library in the operation project using the library builder. So once you create a library builder, clicking on the library builder, the project library will be generated. Once you are coming back to service engine project, you just need to browse it here, so that it will be plugged to the service engine and you will be able to see all the things. But if any code change, yes, you can go ahead and you need to go for project library, but you need to go for operation project and then you need to do the change and then rebuild the code and then plug in it to the service engine. But if any GB change, then what happens? If you can just directly run it and here. You can directly run it here. But the thing is all the same thing coming from the same project library. These are like not editable fields. So in that case, how we can edit is you need to build a CFG file. You need to build a CFG file. Okay, you can override the global variables. How to change the global variables in the, here again. There is a one just CFG file you need to keep, but only thing is whenever you are creating a CFG file, you need to append this one TIBCO.client and then after that you can give a global variable name. Let's say if the global variable name is TIBCO Hawk network, you can directly give this one TIBCO.client variable dot and then TIBCO Hawk network, and you can give the value. Instead of test you'll be giving some value. Let's say if you are giving, but if you are this is a direct one without any group. If you are need to want to this one, what you need to do, you have to give the like suppose if you are giving this one, right? Let's say if you want to override this one, okay, you can just keep this global variable. Yes, half network can be, you have to setting a default, maybe you can just put 755 7755, or maybe you can anything in the next time. But if it's a single, if it's a direct one, if anything available under the parts, right, so on a grouping and all, you have to put grouping here, and then make sure you have to use only the forward slashes, and then you need to use the number of records here. And then it always has to be name value pair, and what we wanted to store it, this is the file you need to store it, and then let's save. Since we have passed these values, when you are referring and running this process, let's run this process. When you're running, how do you refer the CFG value is using the an icon called P is a standard parameter, and it's path for CFG file, and then you need to refer this path over here, full file path to clipboard. So what will get it? You can OK and then run any one of the process. We'll be able to see whether the global variable is being loaded or not. How we can verify? Just go for any one of the activities. Just go for process data. In the process data, you'll be able to see all the activities. And what was the thing we actually verifying? 200. And what was the property we verified? TIBCO network. Is there anything like that? No. The reason is, okay, I think we have to go down. TIBCO network. It is, will it take from 7755? Yes, it is taking. Okay, now instead of putting it to 200, this time I'll put just 300. So since I change the configuration change, again you need to restart your. Okay, just go for process data. You can just see that. This is the way how you can override the global variables. It doesn't matter this part, the variable that is specifying the CFG file, whether it's from the project library or it's inline to the project, it can able to override any of the GB. This is the way. If you have more groups, you have to put the path for the group using forward slashes. Group and child will be separate with the forward slashes. These slashes. So this is the way how you can override the GVs in the TIBCO designer local.